Georgina. We just have to be aware of it. That's all.
But do you think we'll ever overcome that? Because what I was saying to Pierre earlier was, why haven't we got a vocabulary of text? Just let's develop one. So when Mike put up that Merzbau piece, nobody's analysed it yet, Mike.
I didn't know.
Not just yet. No.
See, the question might be to ask is what the pieces that have been analysed so far. Why were they chosen?
Right.
Oh, this is I didn't cover this.
And there must be something that you perceive them to be analysable in some way or interesting to analyse.
Well, actually, the main consideration was they were short in duration. Actually, was the first.
Well, that's another problem, you see.
Yes, I wanted. Well, it's just for the beta as well, just to make sure that there was people perhaps had the time to obviously do it. I wanted to not have a 12-minute long piece and then say that's the first one we're going to do. So Dripsy was a good starting point. Then Pierre Schaeffer's Étude au chemin de fer was the second. I can't remember. Presque rien, the Ferrari, just one of the extracts. Valley Flow was an example that was brought in at the beginning as an example, but the majority of the pieces there have been short in duration, mainly because I didn't want to already load the people who already are core participants with too much stuff to do.
I know, but that then begs the question of durations of structure and memory and the dynamics of listening, you see. So,
but the initial standpoint from my point was just to gauge whether people could actually use this as
yes, I understand. It's not a criticism.
No,
I'm just saying that we are confined in all sorts of ways, and that's there obviously is an underlying choice there. Duration is quite important because if you have to present an analysis anywhere, the problem is the duration and the fact that your analysis is going to take many more hours and many more pages than it takes to listen to the piece.
Yeah.
I think to address the question that Dennis and Georgina raised is a quasi-sociological one which Oriman must help with. If somebody wants to use Pierre's software and it does not address the issues they think are important in the music, they've got two options. Forget about it, which is what a large number of people will do, or try and engage with the process and get something changed. You've got to somehow trap that first option to say, you want a textual analysis of something and you don't have a vocabulary? This is research, this is what this is about.
Well, what some people have actually done in the Oriman project, who perhaps weren't aware of certain tools like spectral morphology because it's such an eclectic mix of different people, have created their own taxonomies and their own descriptions of analysing pieces, which I didn't expect. I being myself, I thought everyone would know what spectral morphology is, but of course the people who perhaps came from another background, you had to find other ways of describing certain things. And the perspectives that they showed were actually very interesting because they didn't form into my...
What kinds of taxonomies and descriptions in the room?
There was one person who talked about... I wish I remember now. It's on the web. But
we don't have to remember things.
I know, I should remember this one. But it was just about the idea of this one point in the piece of Dripsy where it was like the key. I think it was, he didn't call it the key, but something along those lines where it was the turning point. And it was all about that. And I never even thought about the perspective of this one point in a piece where it could be the not a crescendo, as it were, but just a turning point or a thing that kind of framed the discourse.
But I think we need a proliferation of these, because none of these ways of thinking about spectral morphology is not adequate in itself. It's not large enough, it's not diverse enough. Schaefferian analysis is not adequate in itself. Step on one needs a good comb through and extension and sorting. So none of these, I think, are adequate taxonomy. So more people need to work on that, and then it needs to be a big project to to sort out this diversity.
Sure. I foresee, especially with Pierre's software, the potential of actually having multiple tools working in unison to make up for the shortcomings of the potential methodologies that what doesn't cover. For example, Severin Noir can talk about the interrelations between objects, whereas Schaeffer's type of morphology can talk about the types of objects they are. I mean, you could potentially...
It's not only a question of software, though, visualization software, because a lot of this stuff you can't even visualize with on paper. It's just conceptually impossible or near impossible or just very difficult.
Thank you. I want to bring Simon his way.
Just bring right back to the original thing when we asked what is it that we are analysing. It strikes me that we need to possibly be clearer and possibly being devil's advocate here. So we're actually analysing sound files and the playback in a particular listening experience, particular listening situation. And when we talk about experience, we need to actually define that this is a particular experience we're listening back to, possibly a studio/laboratory experience. That's what we're analysing, because there seems to be only a limited transferability to the experience in the concert hall.
Carlos.
I have a question about e-analysis, the software. It's not a critique, it's just a question. Oh, sorry. Sorry. What if I import Beethoven's Ninth Symphony? What will be the difference? I mean, why is it only for electroacoustic music? It will be just a sound file with a spectrogram, and I can make an analysis for Beethoven as well.
Yes.
So I suppose it's not just for electroacoustic. So it's not EA. I mean, not only for.
Not only for electroacoustic music, of course. Last month I was in symposium in Lille, and I met ethnomusicologists, and they are very interested by this software to analyze recording in situ.
Okay, good.
Well, we must invite them along to the next seminar up here.
But it is true that e-analyse was prepared more closely associated with a note-based paradigm, and this is a complementary, overlapping one, which is more based on a sound-based paradigm. And we can use them tautologically, but they're not actually made for that.
Michael, if you'd like to come forward, Michael wants to plug in. In a moment or two, I'm going to ask him to summarise. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Leigh. Yeah.
But the other point I think about the software is it's not meant to answer all problems. It's meant to take a lot of tools and give us a means to do analyses with those tools. So obviously the more ideas we get that are implementable, the better. But just as you say, some things aren't going to go through visualization. So we have to find alternative means for that. One thing that Pierre and I have discussed at great length is what we heard today with stereo. This is a first version. The big breakthrough that we've needed for a long time is to deal with at least a two-dimensional space and ideally go beyond that. And to be continued is the next line that goes there.